My name is Killer48, and I'm a super fan of the GBA. I've followed it since the Season 2 finale. In Season 3, I was just a silent observer who loved the statistics. Now I want to become more active in the GBA community, and what better way to do that than through my love for the stats. So, I decided to create my own power rankings. Enjoy. Number 12, Cincinnati Loudreds. In short, this team just has too many 4x weaknesses. Both Zygarde and Gliscor are insanely weak to ice. Add on Vivillon and Dragalge, and you've got a big problem. The Loudreds only have 3 ice resists, and one of them is the extremely frail Weavile. A similar situation exists with Talonflame and Vivillon being super weak to rock. So the reason that 4x weaknesses are so bad in this format is because of hidden power. Your opponent can plan for your Pokemon, so they know they can just tack on a hidden power to something it can normally switch in on. For example, Talonflame trying to switch into a grass type. Your opponent just puts hidden power rock on that grass type, and you're down Talonflame for no reason. You can try to play around it, but it adds a lot more 50-50s that would hurt you a lot more than it would hurt your opponent if you lost them. Also, like Danza, Tom, and Adam said, Melvone might not have as much time to prepare for the GBA as everyone else, so that's why he's down at the bottom. I think he has a decent team overall, he just has to use it correctly and overcome the hurdles of 4x weaknesses and time itself. These are the base stat totals table I made. I did one of these for every team. Number 11, Detroit Steel Wings. They have the lowest base stat total of all the teams, and 120 points left over in the salary cap. So, that's not a very good start, but I do like the defensive core of Skarmory and Clefable. The Steel Wings never completed their fantasy core with the strong dragon type, and that could prove bad for them. But overall, the only picks I really dislike are Mega Beedrill, Claydol, and Feraligatr. Gator was an Inu poke for a long time, yet in the GBA draft, it's in a tier above UU. I think it's a good Pokemon that can do well in the format, but it was just overvalued in the tiers. Claydol doesn't really need to be explained why it's a bad pick, it just has too many weaknesses, it's just not good. But Mega Beedrill, that does need to be explained why I think that's a bad pick. The Mega is probably the most important pick you can make in the draft. I just don't think Beedrill is up to par with the other Megas. I don't understand why he got it first. Although I will say that Skarmory was one of the best picks in the entire draft, because that meant that it could not be used against Mega Beedrill, and provides one of the best bulky pokes to complement one of the frailest pokes. Weezing was also a great value pick, and so is Sableye considering it's 3 tiers under its Mega and arguably better. Lastly, this team has 3 Dark and Ghost weaknesses and no resists except for Clefable for Dark. Luckily for them, no one drafted Gengar, but every team aside from the Giantes has at least 1 Ghost or Dark type, and the Giantes could use Ditto and copy Gothitelle, Chandelure, Sableye, or Claydol. And this is the stat sheet. And as you can see, the 492, the lowest base stat total. Number 10, the St. Louis Rampardos. This team has some very good threats. Terrakion, Mew, Volcarona, Chansey, and even Nidoqueen are all great pokes. So the problem? They cost too much salary. A-Drive's last 3 picks are forced to be in you due to the new salary cap rule. There's too much of a power gap in this team. Unless Slurpuff, Archeops, Klinklang, or Gourgeist work really well against the opponent's team, I wouldn't expect to see them too often. It makes the team much easier to prepare for, and thus lower on the list. Plus, I really dislike the Mega choice. As I mentioned earlier, normal Sableye is 3 tiers below Mega Sableye in the GBA draft, and Mega Sableye can't run any leftovers, and switching between its two abilities is a pain. It has two great abilities, but no way to transition between them smoothly. If your opponent has a hazard stacker on the field while Sableye is in the back on Mega'd, then they can get up a hazard anyways. But I will say that I really like Mew and Terrakion for the format. I've used tons of random surprise Mew sets back in 5th Gen Yu-Yu. It's the most versatile Pokemon in the format. And I've used and seen Terrakion a lot during VGC 2015, and I know it performed well in GBA Season 2, so I'm excited to see what it does this season. This is where it starts getting difficult to choose. These teams all have noticeably less problems, and their teams have more picks that I agree with. But for number 9, I have the San Francisco Giants. To be honest, I really like Gio, mainly because his team mascot is the almighty Entei. But I hope this shows that I'm being unbiased by putting one of my favorites down this low, especially when others think very highly of his draft. This team has the same problem as the Loudgrids. Too many 4x weaknesses. I mean, Scizor, Ferrothorn, Gyarados, Moltres, Mega Swampert. That's almost half the team that can be taken down by a well-placed hidden power. Even with the rain to negate the fire weakness, I still don't like it, especially because of the 6th Gen weather nerf. Not to mention that many of Gio's Pokemon that don't have the 4x weaknesses aren't very good Pokemon, in my opinion. Mesprit is 15 base speed lower than Uxie, and according to Cooper, and I'm inclined to agree, it's the worst by far of its trio, because of its speed. My own thoughts are that bulky offense has generally been the most successful form of play in this format, and Uxie is bulkier, faster, and can still hit decently, especially with some Calm Mind boosts. And Uxie was still available when Gio drafted Mesprit. So, for his other Pokemon, Electivire, I can see how it could be useful, and was possibly the best new Pokemon for Gio, but I've personally never liked it. It could do some work, I don't know, we'll just have to see. Politoed is limited in what it can do besides set up the rain. You know, it has some sets it can run, but its main use is just setting up the rain. It doesn't do much else. And Ditto, it has potential. I'm still unsure of Ditto. I know it can scout sets and play mind games, but I don't know if it can do anything else. Honestly, the only pokes I don't have any problems with are Goodra and Scolipede. Overall, with the 4x weaknesses and the 6th Gen weather mechanics, I'm iffy at best on how well this team can perform. Not saying it can't or it won't, but Gio will just have to prove me wrong before he goes up any higher, and I honestly hope he does prove me wrong. Number 8, the Pittsburgh Pirates. Now, I like Tup. I even came up with nicknames for 2 of his Pokemon if he decides to use them. You can see there, Hitmontop, and for the win. And outside of 3 4x weaknesses and a Rotom, I'm okay with this team. The pokes that have 4x weaknesses have workarounds when necessary. Heatran can run Air Balloon or Shaka and might be able to take a hidden power from its bulk. Salamence is definitely bulky enough to take an HP Ice or 2, and could run Yachi if needed. And Cacturne isn't really a threat enough that you need to put HP Bug on it. Or I should say it's not perceived as a threat enough. I can see it being a threat. But I really disagree with the Rotom pick. Tup said he did it because his team had a fighting weakness, but he had Crobat, Azumarill, Salamence, Slowking, and to a lesser extent Mega Alakazam for fighting moves. Plus this calc that says a Conqueror knockoff will OHKO Rotom no matter what. It just doesn't make sense to me. It's not a fighting counter. And you know, if you wanted a Rotom, you should have got the fan form for higher base stats and less weaknesses. It's still a fighting resist and can even hit back with Air Slash. Number 7, the New York Yankees. Very similar to Tup, they have a couple of 4X weaknesses, but aren't too much to be worried about as long as you plan and play carefully. The main problem is one draft choice. I don't think I even need to say it, but I will. It's Regirock. It's just not a good Pokemon. And there were still so many good indie pokes to choose from. Here's a list of indie pokes that got drafted after Regirock. Mesprit, Klinklang. Okay, well, Rotom doesn't really count. Muck, Uxie, Miltank, Gourgeist, Vivillon, and Stoutland. I'd choose any of these, maybe even Rotom, before I'd choose Regirock. Also, Shady said he drafted Galvantula so that no one else could use it against him. Wouldn't a better alternative be to get a good Rapid Spinner or Defogger instead of getting a Pokemon that you don't really like for your team? A large amount of his team uses Priority or is too slow to take advantage of the Sticky Web. I'm also uncertain about how Superior will perform because it's just a one-trick pony. But what put the Yankees above Tup is the solid draft they have otherwise. I really like Conkeldurr, Rotom H, Milotic, and Azel specifically. I'm hoping to see great things from them. Number 6, the Long Island Regirockies. 3 Psychic types. Besides that, it's a very good team. With no other Dark, Ghost, or Bug weaknesses, it's not even a huge problem. It's not like Nips is going to bring all 3 of them every week. This team has many other good options, and that's why it's up to number 6 in my rankings. Number 5, the Utah Jasmine. This team has a few questionable picks, but Cooper has proved that he knows how to make use of them. The performance of AGG Ron last season was amazing, and I believe that it was the first ever successful mascot pick. I expect the same from it this season as well. Also, I normally wouldn't agree with Dusknoir, but if there's anyone who can make it work, it's Cooper. This season he has a lot of bulky mons like he's used to, but also has things like Starmie to complement the defensive pokes with some offensive utility. Lastly, Cooper has all the momentum as the technical winner of Season 3. Number 4, the Winnipeg Aquajets. I really love this draft. It's very balanced. Even the lower tier Pokemon are really good. I haven't personally had much success using this Magius, but I can see why it's good. I just haven't done good with it yet. I'm sure someone else can, I think. The Regenerator Core is solid as well. And some good offensive presence with Infernape and Excadrill. And yeah, that's basically it. It's a really good draft. Number 3, Milwaukee Sawsbucks. Arcanine is one of the best Pokemon in this format in my opinion. I'm going to go on a little tangent about Arcanine and Suicune, so I'm sorry. But I absolutely love Arcanine's versatility, and as much as I hate to admit it, it's even better than the Almighty Entei, for this format that is. This is mainly because of its ability to run the defensive set with Morning Sun and Will-O-Wisp. Like that extra versatility to be able to be offensive or defensive is just perfect for this format. And also it has Flash Fire, which Entei doesn't have yet, but it will eventually, hopefully. I also love Suicune with it as the Air Bud core, or the Flare Flood core. Suicune is definitely one of my favorite Pokemon. It stands with the Almighty Entei in the Legendary Beast Trio. It's the favorite Pokemon of my good friend, and I've used it successfully in both UU and VGC 2015. And if I remember correctly, Suicune has shown prowess in the league before on Cooper's team. So I spent way too much time talking about just those 2 Pokemon, I'm sorry. But overall, there are a couple picks I'm unsure of, like Donphan, Electros, and Muck. and I can see them being useful if played correctly. Everything else I really like about this draft, and that's why the Milwaukee Solid Bucks are number 3. Number 2, the Real Madrid. Miguel just has a solid overall draft. The only pick I really dislike is the Cavalier. Not because of its performance in previous seasons, but because I don't see a reason to ever bring it over GBA. But Miguel could have an unexpected trick up his sleeve, and I'm not going to count it out until he does. Another small fault I see is Mato. He might have been a little overvalued in the tiers, but it doesn't really matter because Miguel handled the salary cap rule really well, and I think his team will be a big threat over the course of the season. Number 1, New Orleans Pelicans. I had to give Inte some special art there, sorry. So seeing as this is the number 1 spot, I'm going to take the time and go over each Pokemon instead of just shortening it to ones I like and dislike. So, starting with Mega Venusaur. Mega Venusaur has proven itself to be one of the best pokes in the format. Not much else needs to be said. It's part of the combination of the Fire-Water Grass core that John has, tackle on the Fantasy core and the almighty Inte. I can't see this team being stopped. Although I did say that Inte isn't as good as Arcanine for the format, it is still really good. Nothing lets to switch it into a 50% burn chance. It can also run a variety of items and just be amazing as always. The rest of John's mons are great too. Sylveon makes a great cleric and could maybe even run a spec set to catch someone off guard. It works really well in PGC, and maybe it'll be used a week or 2. Raikou gives the team a lot of momentum with its speed and Volt Switch initiative. Kyurem tears through everything. Empoleon provides the rare defogger that's not weak to rocks, and can set up rocks of its own, and just be a really good bulky water type. Staraptor is the only one I'm a little unsure of, just because John already has Kyurem as a physical sweeper. And it's not that bad to have 2, but when they're both weak to rocks, and you have 1 defogger, it makes me a little unsure. Crocodile is great for this format because it's the most reliable pursuit trapper in a format full of versatile psychic types like Mew, Mesprit, Meloetta, 2 different Alakazams, and more. Spiritomb can run Protomb, a bulky Willow and Pain Split set, or possibly even offensive. I'm not sure about that. Uxie is one of those versatile psychic types I mentioned, and in my opinion, better than Mesprit. And nothing needs to be said about the Season 2 MVP. This team is just so great and so balanced, and with John's enthusiasm for the season, I can't see him not at number 1. Also, he has the highest base stat total of all the teams at 552.09. So there are a lot of factors that go into these teams, and a lot of things I may not have thought about. If there's something you think I didn't factor in properly, let me know in the comments. Best of luck to all the GBA participants, and see you all next time.